if you wanted to talk around into writing the music, the music that you wanted to write, being constantly abusive is probably not the best way to go about it. And if anything, it makes me want to be petulant and be like, go the complete opposite way.
Oh, jazz album.
Yeah.
Guys, what's going on? Welcome back to the channel. This is going to be a bit of a different video because this is the first time this has happened. I did my intro to the video and then I recorded my reaction to the song, or recorded my reaction. I listened to the whole track and then was doing my whole talking piece, and I had a lot of points that I really want to actually get out there. And then I realized I wasn't recording. So I was like, how do I work with this one? So of course I can't recreate a first reaction. So I think I'm just going to talk about Thornhill's new track and do a review about it and just bring up some conversational points that I'd love for you guys to get involved with. So that's what we're going to be doing for this video. There's not going to be a reaction. We'll talk about different parts of the track and maybe I'll bring up clips, but also it's kind of works in my favor as well because UNFD have been a problem in the past with blocking videos that I've done for Thornhill. The Heroin album reaction was an absolute nightmare to get onto YouTube, kept getting blocked. So I mean, it's kind of a win-win, you know, I get to do a video anyway, and I also don't have to get blocked by UNFD. So guys, let's jump into it. So Thornhill, for anyone who doesn't know, brought out a new track called Viper Room, and it is the first track after their album Heroin, which came out last year, which was the follow-up album from The Dark Pool, which I actually have here with me now. And this is one of my favorite records in the metalcore genre of all time, and one of the first records in the metalcore space that I actually purchased for myself to have a physical copy of. Still haven't taken it out of the package because it's just easier to put on my display wall when it's not, you know, opened up, and the packaging just keeps it nice and compact. But that was one of my first loves, and I think that is the general consensus with a lot of people, that people who speak about Thornhill, it's either the Butterfly EP or the Dark Pool. That is what everyone always goes back to. Now personally, I haven't heard the Butterfly EP, so I can't really speak much on that, but definitely love at first sight when I heard this album. It kind of spiraled into going and listening to a lot of other Aussie bands. I think these guys might have actually been the first Australian band that I've ever actually delved into. And then, as you guys know, if you keep up with the channel and just the metalcore space in general, it opened up a whole new world of discovering amazing talent from Australia. But then last year, 2022, was it 2022? I think it was 2022. Heroin came out, which is, yeah, it was 2022. I have it here. Heroin came out, which was a controversial album to say the least. Now, I've already made my points in the album reaction highlight video that you can see on YouTube, but that album, I think, first and foremost, if you were completely sold on this sound, it was always going to take a bit of time to get used to the sound that was in Heroin, because I think from a musical standpoint, it was a complete stylistic change. I won't say a total 180 because there's still definitely tracks on that album that have hints of the Dark Pool, but for the most part, it's like a completely different vibe to the Dark Pool. The Dark Pool feels like way more traditionally metalcore, whereas Heroin is like elements of metalcore with a shoegaze feel and just more of a stylistic, I guess, different approach to the genre, which I'm all for. But I think my gripe with that album, and I think a lot of people in the scene's gripe, and the general consensus, not the unanimous consensus, because there is some people that really love that album and what it does, but my problems with that album were that I think the production or something from a technical end, I can't really put my finger on it, but it felt a little bit muddy in parts. And I think for as good as a vocalist as Jacob is, I think what's the point of having a vocalist that good when the majority of his parts, maybe not the majority, but maybe even like 50-50 on that album, was him being buried for the most part by a lot of the other instruments and the swells and everything else that was going on from an instrumental standpoint and the production standpoint, post-production that was added into that album. So that was like the history of Thornhill for me. Again, I can't speak on their entire discography because the Butterfly EP I still haven't checked out. Maybe I'll check it out after this, but that brings me on to Viper Room, which is their newest track. And when I finished up the reaction, which of course I don't have the footage for, which is an absolute pain, but I will try and go back on the points that I've made in that imaginary video that doesn't actually exist. What I was saying and the way in which I was comparing it is, you know, take everything I say here with a pinch of salt, is the Architects situation with all of Architects' older albums for the most part being fantastic albums. Really, really good albums. Again, I've heard Holy Hell, Lost Together, Lost Forever, and All Our Gods Have Abandoned Us. And I think I maybe heard one of their other albums as well from back in the day. All fantastic albums. They have that real metalcore anger from back in the day. But obviously Architect's newer stuff has taken a step away from that, and the band has been on record saying that they're not those angry teenagers anymore. They're not those angry guys in their early 20s. So naturally, their tastes and their feelings and their inner desires to make that angrier music doesn't really exist anymore. So it wouldn't really be genuine for them to stay making music that doesn't align with them as people anymore. So I completely understand that. Now, in saying that, does that give them a pass to make the, I guess, somewhat cookie cutter music, especially from a lyrical standpoint? Does it give them a pass? Not really, and people can obviously be critical of that. But I think people holding Architects accountable for no longer being angry and making the exact same music for like 5-10 albums in a row is a little bit ridiculous. And to bring Architects back to Thornhill, I've seen Architects on podcasts saying that the more people get on their back about going back to their older sound, the more it pushes them in the direction of the new sound, the more, I guess, arena sound and highly produced radio track mixed in with metalcore. That overall sound that Architects are kind of known for nowadays, it pushes them more in that direction when the people who have loved their records for the last few years, which again is completely okay to not like their new stuff, but the people that keep harping on about, you guys suck now, go back to your older stuff, the band is useless now, when you go through all this new changes that they've gone through, I think that is kind of the direction that Thornhill have now gone in. Now, whether or not that's exactly what's happened, I don't know. I haven't spoken to the band. I don't know what's going on behind the scenes. But to me, we've had the Dark Pool, and then we had Heroin, which was obviously that stylistic change. And now we have like a new EP, LP, album cycle starting with this new track, Viper Room. And again, it's only a small taste, but I think it's very, very evident that the Dark Pool Thornhill is no longer with us. I know, rest in peace, but it's not necessarily a bad thing. It's just people who love this style are never going to be happy with the newer stuff. And I think that's what it just comes down to. I think maybe Thornhill could be in that Architect situation where they're falling into this thing of being pissed off with people getting on their back about going back to the Dark Pool. And we're all human. I completely understand it. If I was going to do something anyway, but then someone comes along and says, Drew, you have to do this. Instantly, even though I was going to do it myself off my own accord, it makes me not want to do something when someone like tells you to do it. So that's exactly what Architects actually discussed on a podcast. I can't remember the name of the podcast or which video it was, but I'll link it in the description of Architects talking about how they've like actually been pushed away from going back and experimenting with their older stuff because of how annoying people are in their comments and on their Instagram and emails and everywhere about them going back to their sound. So I think, again, I can't confirm this, but it does feel like maybe Thornhill have fallen into that like kind of awkward space where they have a lot of fans from their older stuff, which was very, again, kind of like traditionally metalcore, and now they're going down a new creative direction. People are asking them to go back to it and like complaining that their new stuff isn't great, and they're now in this position where like, okay, well, you know, are we going to push back on this, or do we just, you know, double down? And I think they've really doubled down with Viper Room. Was the track bad? Not necessarily. I'm one of those guys that loves their older stuff. However, I'm not going to like complain that they're trying a new thing. I just don't think this band is really for me anymore. I think they have got some redeemable elements. There was some moments in the track that I guess brought in the riffier stuff again, but again, it feels like the whole track is more about this like new vibe that they're creating. I actually used the example, which I can't really explain in any more detail than the song sounds like it's the backing track to a promo for their clothing brand, because I know they're doing this whole like fashion thing at the moment, which is cool. And again, it's cool to see bands branching out, but I think the whole like track just felt like the soundscape to an ad for a clothing brand. That's what it felt like to me. It kind of felt so far removed from something that has a lot more soul in it, like the Dark Pool did. And again, this is all just my opinion, guys. I would love to know what you guys think in the comment section down below. Again, this is kind of a new video for me. I don't really know how it's going to go down because of course I've lost the entire reaction. If I was to rate this track off of a first listen, I would give it a 6 out of 10. I don't think it's the worst thing in the world. I think it falls into some of the same traps as Heroin did, with the mix just sounding muddy. It's obviously a creative choice, an intentional choice to create this like overall vibe without really highlighting anything in the track itself. I don't think the vocals really stood out. I don't think the guitars really stood out. I thought the drums were a bit muffled. So it all just kind of comes together as like all of these very good elements from all the musicians in the band are all fantastic. We've seen it before. They're all very talented, but I just think that the new production or style is just all muddied into one big mess. And again, it just kind of serves as almost sounding like an ad for a clothing brand at this point. So yeah, that is my thoughts on this new track from Thornhill. Again, I'm trying not to be like a hater because I'm not hating on it. I'm just trying to give my thoughts as they come to me and my honest first reaction to their track. Of course, I've missed the entire reaction, but maybe this will serve as a better video anyway. So I think the bottom line is we may kiss goodbye to this Thornhill, but you know, maybe some people prefer the new sound and maybe they'll get new fans and grow from there. But guys, that's my take. Leave a like in the video if you did enjoy. Make sure you're subbed to the channel. Let me know what you think in the comment section down below. That's all from me. I'm signing out. Look after yourselves. I'll see you in the next one. Cheers.